He walked into the shop quietly, his steps slow and heavy. In his hands he held a small, worn velvet box. Inside was a metal, shiny but old, with scratches that told stories no one asked about anymore. His eyes were tired and his hands trembled just a little. He wasn't here to show off. He was here because he had no choice. The kind of choice no one should ever have to make. The shop owner looked up, curiosity mixing with something else in his eyes. But what happened next? It was something neither of them expected. The man wasn't just selling a medal, he was offering a piece of a forgotten past. A past filled with bravery, pain, and secrets that could change everything. And that day, a simple pawn shop became the stage for a story no one was ready to hear. His name was Mr. Thomas. No one really knew much about him. He lived alone in a small apartment at the edge of town, the kind of place people pass by without noticing. He didn't speak much. He didn't ask for help. He just existed quietly. Years ago, Mr. Thomas had worn a uniform. He had stood in places most of us would never dare to. He had seen things no one should see and had done things no one should have to do. He was a soldier once, a protector, a hero, but now he was just an old man trying to make it through the day. He came into the pawn shop because he was out of options. Rent was overdue. The fridge was nearly empty. The little money he had left wasn't enough for both food and medicine. Pride kept him from begging, so instead he brought the only thing he had left of value, his medal. He didn't want to sell it. It meant everything to him. But hunger and bills don't wait for memories. He stood at the counter, head bowed, voice low, asking if someone could tell him what it was worth. It's heartbreaking, isn't it? How we cheer for our heroes when they come home but forget them when the cheering stops. Mr. Thomas had given everything for his country, and now he was standing alone trying to trade honor for survival. He didn't expect pity. He didn't want praise. He just needed enough to get by, enough to make it through the month. And maybe, just maybe, he hoped someone would still see him, not as a burden, but as the man he used to be, as the man he still was inside. Rick had owned the pawn shop for almost 20 years. He wasn't the warmest man, but he was fair. Straightforward, the kind of guy who didn't like small talk but had a sharp eye for anything of value. Most people who came in were trying to make a quick buck. He'd seen it all: tools, electronics, old jewelry. Nothing surprised him anymore. But when Mr. Thomas walked in that morning, something was different. Rick noticed the man right away. Frail, quiet, clothes clean but worn thin. There was no rush in his steps, just a heavy kind of calm. Rick nodded toward the counter, not expecting much. Mr. Thomas approached slowly and set the small velvet box down like it was made of glass. He opened it, revealing a single medal, round dull silver, with faded ribbons. Rick leaned in slightly, his eyes narrowing. "I was wondering, Mr. Thomas said, barely above a whisper, if this was worth anything." Rick didn't answer right away. He looked at the medal, really looked. The kind of look you give something that stirs something deep. He picked it up gently, turning it over, examining the engraving, the wear on the edges. "Where'd you get this?" he asked. Voice more careful now. "Earned it," Mr. Thomas said. "A long time ago." Rick set the medal back down, slower than he picked it up. He rubbed his chin, suddenly unsure. "I just need enough to cover rent," Mr. Thomas added. "I wouldn't sell it otherwise." There was a pause. Heavy, uncomfortable. The air in the room changed. Rick wasn't looking at just a medal anymore. He was looking at something sacred. But Mr. Thomas didn't see it that way. To him it was survival or nothing. Rick took a step back from the counter. "I'm sorry," he said, "but I can't take this." The words hit like a stone. Mr. Thomas blinked, stunned. "Is it not worth anything?" he asked softly. Rick looked at him, eyes sharp but full of something else. "It's not that," he said. "It's that it's worth too much." Mr. Thomas stood there in silence, unsure what to say. His fingers hovered near the medal, almost afraid to touch it again. He looked up at Rick, confused. "I don't understand," he said. "You said it's worth too much." Rick didn't answer right away. He looked down at the medal again, then slowly closed the velvet box and pushed it gently back toward Mr. Thomas. "I mean it," Rick said, his voice low. "I can't take this." Mr. Thomas blinked, his throat tightening. Shame crept into his expression. He thought maybe Rick was trying to be polite, maybe it was too old to sell, maybe it didn't have any real value at all. I didn't come here for charity, he said quickly, his voice shaking now. I'm not looking for favors. I know you're not, Rick said, more gently this time. Then why won't you take it? Rick stared at him, his jaw tight. For a second it looked like he might be fighting back words, or emotions. Mr. Thomas felt like he was shrinking under the weight of the moment. He reached out to take the box, his hand trembling slightly. Sorry to waste your time, he mumbled. Rick didn't move. He just kept watching the old man with a strange look in his eyes. It wasn't pity, it was something deeper, like recognition. The silence stretched. And then just as Mr. Thomas turned to leave, Rick said softly, "Wait. I think I know who you are." Mr. Thomas turned back slowly, confused by Rick's words. "What do you mean?" he asked. Rick stepped out from behind the counter and walked to a drawer tucked under a glass display case. He opened it, rummaged through a few papers and photos, then pulled out a small worn photograph. It was black and white, faded with time. He held it up and pointed to a group of young men in uniform, some smiling, some serious, all standing close, shoulder to shoulder. "You recognize this?" Rick asked, offering the photo to Mr. Thomas. The old man took it with careful hands, holding it close to his face. He squinted, then froze. "I haven't seen this in years," he whispered. That's my old unit." Rick nodded. "I thought so." He pointed to one of the soldiers in the photo. "That one there. That's my father." Mr. Thomas blinked, staring at the face in the picture. "Your father was Private Daniels?" Rick's voice dropped. "Yeah. He died a few years ago, but before he passed, he told us a story. Said he owed his life to a soldier he never got to thank." Mr. Thomas looked stunned. He didn't speak. Rick continued. "He was pinned down during a mission. Everyone thought he was gone, but someone he never knew who ran out under fire and carried him back, took 2 bullets, and kept going. Got him to safety." Mr. Thomas swallowed hard, his hand instinctively resting near his side. "I still feel those," he said softly. 60 years later. Rick nodded slowly. "He never knew your name, just said the man had a scar over his left eyebrow. Said he was quiet, brave. The kind of man you don't forget, even if you never get to say thank you." Mr. Thomas looked up, stunned. "That was you, wasn't it?" The old man hesitated, then nodded. "Just once." Rick took a breath. "Now do you understand why I can't take that medal? That's not something you sell. That's something you honor." There was silence between them, but this time it was full of meaning, full of memory. 2 lives, connected by a moment in history, finally crossing paths after all these years. Mr. Thomas stood frozen, still holding the photo in his weathered hands. His eyes, once dull with fatigue, now shimmered with something else, memory, pain, and disbelief. "All these years," he whispered, "you never knew who made it out." I thought maybe no one did." Rick gave a small understanding nod. "He made it. He got married, had a family. He talked about that day until the end of his life. Said he never forgot the man who gave him a second chance." Mr. Thomas's voice broke. "I didn't do it for thanks. I just did what I had to. And that's exactly why you deserve to be thanked," Rick said, stepping closer. "You didn't just save a soldier. You saved a father, a husband. Without you I wouldn't be standing here." Mr. Thomas looked down at the velvet box. "I never wanted to give this up," he admitted quietly. "But I didn't know what else to do." Rick shook his head firmly. "You're not pawning that medal, not while I'm here. That thing belongs with you, and the story it carries." Tears welled up in Mr. Thomas's eyes, but he blinked them back. "You don't have to do anything for me." "I know I don't," Rick said. "But I want to. Let me help with the rent, groceries, whatever you need, no strings." Mr. Thomas's lips trembled. He hadn't cried in years, not since the funerals. But something inside him cracked, something that had been locked away for too long. "Thank you," he whispered, voice raw, "for seeing me." Rick placed a hand on his shoulder, steady and firm. "It's the least I can do for everything you gave." And for the first time in a long time, Mr. Thomas didn't feel forgotten. He felt seen. He felt human again. Rick hesitated for a moment, then turned back toward the drawer where he'd found the photo. He opened a smaller compartment this time, one that hadn't been touched in years. Carefully, he pulled out a yellowed envelope, sealed and slightly crumpled from time. "I wasn't sure I'd ever give this to anyone," Rick said quietly. "My father wrote it before he passed, told me to give it to the man who saved his life. If I ever found him." Mr. Thomas's hands trembled as he took the envelope. His name was written on the front in fading ink. "To the man who gave me another tomorrow," it read. He stared at it for a long moment, then slowly he broke the seal and unfolded the letter inside. The paper shook as he held it. Rick stood back, giving him space. The words were simple, but they carried weight no metal ever could. "I never got your name, but I remember your face. The way you ran into hell, without thinking twice. You pulled me from fire, and didn't stop, even when you were bleeding. You didn't have to save me, but you did. Because of you I got to live. I got to hold my wife's hand, watch my son grow up. Laugh, love, grow old. You gave me years I never thought I'd have. And I've lived every one of them trying to be worthy of that gift. If you're reading this, please know, I never forgot you, and I never stopped being grateful." Mr. Thomas pressed the letter to his chest, eyes closed, tears now falling freely down his cheeks. Not from pain, but from release. From knowing it mattered, that he mattered. Rick didn't say a word. He didn't have to. "EPs." Mr. Thomas looked up, voice breaking. "All these years, I thought no one remembered." Rick met his gaze. "We did. My father did. And now I always will." And in that quiet moment, filled with memories and unspoken thanks, two lives came full circle. Bound by sacrifice. Sealed by gratitude. After that day, everything began to change for Mr. Thomas. Rick didn't just help him with rent, he went further. He connected him with a local veterans group, one that helped with food, medical care and companionship. Within a week, volunteers were checking in on Mr. Thomas daily. Meals were delivered. Appointments were made. People started calling him by name. Rick also shared the story with a few friends. The news spread fast. Local reporters came to hear what happened. They listened as Rick and Mr. Thomas told their story, one of bravery, of survival, and of a forgotten hero finally being seen. People started showing up. Neighbors. Strangers, children who just wanted to shake his hand. Some brought cards, others brought gifts. A group of high school students even made a banner that read, "Thank you, Mr. Thomas." For the first time in decades, Mr. Thomas didn't feel invisible. He felt honored, and he didn't pawn the medal. He kept it right beside the letter from Rick's father. But now, instead of sitting in a dusty box, it sat on a shelf in his living room, surrounded by photographs and flowers. A reminder not of what he lost, but of what he gave, and what he received in return. He no longer walked with his head down. He walked with quiet pride. And every time he saw Rick, they exchanged a nod, one that said more than words ever could. Because in helping one man, Rick helped a whole town remember what heroism really looks like. A few weeks later, Mr. Thomas returned to the pawn shop, this time with something in his hand. It wasn't the medal, it was small, square, and worn from time. He handed it to Rick without a word. Rick looked down and saw an old fabric patch, faded, but still intact. It was the unit insignia from Mr. Thomas's days in service. "This was on my uniform the day I pulled your father out," Mr. Thomas said softly. "Figured maybe it should stay with his son." Rick held it gently, overwhelmed. "Are you sure?" Mr. Thomas nodded. "You helped me more than you know. That patch has done its job. Now it's yours." Rick didn't speak. He just closed his hand around the patch and gave Mr. Thomas a firm nod. In that moment, something passed between them, something silent and powerful. It wasn't just a patch, it was a legacy, handed down with honor. Sometimes the people who've given the most ask for the least. Mr. Thomas didn't want praise. He didn't want attention, he just needed a little help. But what he received was something far greater: recognition, respect, and a reminder that his sacrifice still mattered. This story isn't just about a medal or a forgotten veteran. It's about how one act of kindness can reignite a legacy. It's about remembering those who served, even when the world moves on. Because heroes don't always wear capes, sometimes they walk among us quietly, just waiting to be seen. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, leave a comment below, and subscribe for more powerful stories. Don't forget to share this with friends and family, because everyone deserves to hear about real heroes and the kindness that changes lives. Thank you for watching.